Hello and welcome to BYD Talk. My name's Sly and I'd like to show you what I've done to replace the 12-volt battery in the Atto3. And the reason it needed replacing is it did finally die. Even though I managed to eke out nearly 18 months of use out of the little thing. As many of you know who have been watching my videos, I have been monitoring the battery and looking for changes when software updates have occurred. And we have seen a change in the way the car charges the battery to improve it over a period of time. And so with the few instances that I've had where I have gone flat, where my 12-volt battery just wouldn't get the car going, and there are reasons for that having happened, I was able to get it going by a number of different means. That is probably content for another video. But the bottom line is, at the end of the day, I did some method of jump starting, most recently with a lithium starter. Highly recommend that you get one of those. So let's have a look at this video that I've made coming up, and it will talk about what type of battery I've used, why I used it, how I got it in, because it's a different size battery and a different mounting mechanism. Once that video is finished, I'll come back with some details and some slides on exactly what needs to be paid attention to in order for you to install the same type of battery into your BYD Atto3. So without further ado, let's have a look at the video. Well, hello, this is March 2024, and I'm going to replace the dead BYD battery. And this has been 18 months old now, and it's dead as a dodo. Being an electric car, that means I couldn't start the car. It caused all sorts of issues. By the way, that's a battery monitor there, so I could see this battery starting to give me trouble well before it happened. And I wanted to think about putting a lithium battery in, but instead I've decided to play it safe and go for a typical AGM battery, but this battery is a dual purpose battery. And as you can see on the label, yellow top, deep cycle and starting. Well, we don't really need the starting cranks because being electric, we've got nothing to crank. But by getting this kind of battery, the charging profile is the same as this one here, whereas a lithium battery would have a different charging profile. And even with the ones with the built-in battery management systems, it's questionable and really unproven at this stage as to whether they're suitable. So instead, I'm playing it safe with this dual purpose battery, a hybrid battery. Trouble is, look, no edge mounting ledge or ridge at the bottom. These batteries do have that. So I'm going to take out the clamp. Now it might be a bit dark, but there's a clamp down here. I'm going to just take that out. I'm going to drill a hole there for the clamp bracket, and I've got a battery clamp bracket that's simply going to go in across here and hold that, well, hold this one securely in place. This is also wider, longer, which means the nice cover that normally goes over and around this battery won't fit. It may do if I modify it, because it's all Velcroed together. So I may have to make a new little section that's Velcroed just to make up the difference, and it'll look just like the original. So let's get started. So what I have coming up now is a couple of slides. I'll start that in a minute. And I'm just going to do this impromptu as I see the slides. I'm going to pause the slides and just make some comments as to what you need to pay attention to on that particular part of the installation. So before we actually begin, I want to give you a little bit of an idea of what the battery actually looked like just as it was approaching failure. So in here, my battery management system was able to show that on the approach to the absolute failure date, I could see that we were heading periodically down towards 9 volts. And it was lingering there during its checking cycles. And as you can see there was only a couple. This is going back to the 27th of February. As we move forward a little bit in time, you'll see on the 6th of March, we started to dwell down low a little bit longer. And it seemed on every check now, we were dropping volts. You can see it's still at 9.5 volts there. I managed to get around this problem a little bit from time to time by, if you see up here, we're at 13.8 volts. I ensured that I was getting a fair bit of trickle charge going into the battery. I thought that might overcome the problem. I thought maybe I'll let it go flat for some reason that I wasn't aware of. So I made sure the car was either on charge or that I had plugged in the V2 load, the vehicle to load adapter, which also initiates a trickle charge to the battery. So I was trying these little methods. Then as we progress here, we get to the point where the battery went so low that the battery management unit couldn't determine what was going on. And in fact, you'll see it's clipped. I'll actually show you up here. You'll see it's clipped right up the top there because it was actually reading about 35 volts at times. Clearly, it was gone berserk. And as it turns out, the volts in the battery, when I measured them, was down, I think, around 8 volts or so. So the battery management system from that point on couldn't tell me much at all. So it was time to look for an alternative. And I did decide that I'm going to go for a hybrid battery. As I mentioned in the video, this one is the Optima battery. And I've got to say, I'll tell you at the end of the video where I got this from, because it wasn't my first choice. I was actually looking for a direct replacement, a physical replacement that would fit exactly the same way that the original battery would go in. But that wasn't to be, as was in the video there. You saw that the original battery has these little mounting ledges at the bottom so that the clamps that are at the base will hold on to that battery from the bottom. Well, these batteries, just about all of the options here, didn't have that. I had a further complication in finding the correct terminal configuration. Notice that as we're looking at this battery, the battery is turned around. We can see the positive is on the left. The proper terminology for this type of battery is positive on the right because the battery is turned around. The other thing is this battery terminal was the wrong size. So you'll notice there are some shims on top of that battery. So a few things had to be done. After that, we had to see if it would actually fit in the vehicle. So the things to really look out for when doing the install, and the thing to notice is the shims, as I've mentioned. You've got the circles going around the terminals there, just to remind you that if you get a battery, it may not be this exact one, but this particular one needed shims. We had to modify the bracket that goes over the top of the battery. The reason will become apparent in a moment, but it's because the bracket posts that I'm using were just a little bit too short and I couldn't get the wing nut thread to catch. So I had to modify the plastic bracket to bring it down, make it thinner, to allow then the wing nuts to grab hold. And the bracket has not been weakened by this at all. The washers that are sitting across there are spreading the load beautifully. I've tested this and pulled and prodded as hard as I could, and this thing is in as solid as you can bet. But the other thing I'd like to show you is where this arrow is, just here. You'll see that this bracket fits nicely over the first ledge of the battery top and on the other side as well. So it's it basically clips over the battery and helps to keep it exactly in place. So the first thing we had to do, of course, is remove the bracket. As I said in the video, I thought I was going to have to drill a hole, but we came up with a better solution. Bottom line is the first thing you've got to do is pull out the nuts that are holding the bracket. The other side, the other two sides, the opposite corner, if you like, of the battery have got built in, or the base, I should say, that the battery sits on, has got these tiny little hooks, I suppose you would say, bent brackets. that the battery slips under, because the original battery has got its little ledges on it, and it slips under those brackets. Well, this battery, of course, doesn't have those ledges. So what did we do? First thing, pull out the bracket. And this one simply shows that when the new battery goes in, you need to angle it. So as we're looking at the battery from the front of the car, you tilt it down to the left and scoop it in and basically mate with the brackets that are currently there. And the reason we have to do it at that kind of a, whoops, that's probably jumping ahead a little bit too soon, but basically we've got the fuse box, I think it is, on the right hand side of the battery that kind of gets in the way. At the end of the day, we have a nice little bit of clearance, but to get the battery in, scoop it in from the left. Now this is the particular battery clamp that was recommended to me. And if you can get the same length bracket, I guess even a bigger one would be okay, but I kind of like the fact that those plastic ends of the battery, the clamp I should say, up here, did fit over the edge of the battery top so neatly that I'd recommend staying with this clamp, even though you've got to do a little modification to it. But if you can get longer posts, so much the better. Notice they've just got a right angle bend on the bottom, and we of course have to make sure that is underneath the battery plate. Those posts come up through the top of the clamp, and we'll screw down our wing nuts on that. And this is what I was talking about right here, that when just used as it comes out of the packet, because of the shape of that bracket, we couldn't get the wing nut. Now, if I'd have changed it from a wing nut to a standard nut, maybe if I had a thin walled nut, it would have gone in there. But I felt like it was a simple enough job to cut that plastic away. You could see it's got quite a strong surround around that bolt, as well as the ridge, the rest of the ridge. I don't believe there'd be any strength reducing the strength. So I just hacksawed it right there, just cut into it and made a step on each end, and it ended up looking like this. So quite a simple little job. If you've got a file, you could use a file. I started to use a file. It's taking a bit long. That's why it's looking a little bit hacked there. But at the end of the day, it worked out quite a neat job. And there's both ends done. That one could do with a little bit of cleaning up on the right-hand side there. But a little bit of filing there to clean up the burrs. But that's all you need. And from the top, I hope I've got a photo from the top. I don't yet, so I'll have to come back to that. But from the top, it exposes the round bracket, or part of the bracket, that goes directly around the post. The post comes up through an eyelet, and that's what's exposed, and you have a flat surface on top of that eyelet ready for that wing nut and washer to come down and clamp down nicely. Now here's a bonus. This is the front of the battery on the right-hand side as we're looking at the front of the battery. And there's a little ledge of the battery plate, the battery mounting plate. And that is a perfect spot for us to hook our battery post under. Now, if you were really pedantic, I don't think this is necessary, but if you're really pedantic, you could put a little bend in the front edge of that plate to stop that possibly sliding out. But I haven't seen that as being necessary, and you'll see that this has been a pretty solid mount. But what a great spot to put that. And it was that drove me to see, well, what's on the other side of this battery that I can hook onto that would line up directly with that edge. And we came up with a good solution, and that is we don't have to drill a hole at all. We just need to put the post up through the bottom of the plate. Just reach down below with your bracket, with your post, and feed it up through one of the existing screw holes for the bracket. And up she comes, right through the existing hole. Couldn't have been easier. And it's lined up perfectly with the front one. That's what it looks like at the end. As you can see here, a straight bracket connection directly across. This one here at the front is hooked underneath that ledge. This one at the back is pushed up through the existing hole in the bracket. We've got a nice flat surface for the wing nut and washer to screw down. That clamp comes down and it's rock solid. As an added bonus, the battery is pushed over to the left against the original bent corner, if you like, the original brackets that were in place to hold the ridge of the original battery. So it's pushed hard into that corner, and once clamped down, it's not going to go anywhere. And I'd like you to see also, just above me there, is that clearance to the fuse box. And you can see we've got a nice little amount of clearance, not a lot, but it's all we need. So we'll move on to the next picture, and that's what I was talking about. So as again, we're looking at it from the, well, that one's actually looking down the battery at the front edge. And you can see there the two corner brackets, or the battery's nudged up quite nicely against those two brackets. If you want to be even more pedantic than I was, you could actually get a little strap and strap it to, where am I now? Strap, oh, I can't reach it in this, to the vertical post that you've installed, and go around the side of the battery and clamp it to the other side, which will pull the battery and snug that battery in against these brackets here. But as I've mentioned before, the top bracket holds this down very securely. I haven't found it necessary, but that's an added option. And I've got to say, I'm not a mechanical engineer. As far as looking at what can happen to this battery under extreme situations such as an accident or whatever, you know, I can't be telling you which is best to go, you know, whether you need to put an extra strap in there or not. What I do know is that these brackets, these battery brackets, are built for this purpose. They are made to hold down batteries into battery brackets. We've got some great mounting points for these brackets, you know, that aren't going to go anywhere. They're very solid. I'm quite happy with that. But if you want to wrap something around the far side of that battery to pull it in tight, knock yourself out. After this, we go to the final step for me was to reinstall my battery monitor, because the battery monitor was the thing that kept me informed about my battery and that it was slowly dying. At the end of the day, I still was caught out. I still had a car I could not start. So was it a help? In a way it was, because I was reassured that I knew what was going on with the battery. I was already keeping a lookout for a replacement battery. I knew pretty much which direction I was going to go in, but it wasn't until I actually had to jump start my car and go to one of the battery specialists around town, which I'll show you in a moment who they were, that they actually made a recommendation to me, only in the sense that you know, I was asking for a particular type of battery, and that was a hybrid, a deep cycle battery. And they were able to come up with some suggestions, and we were able to together work out which battery is the best candidate. I had to figure out how to install the thing, but at the end of the day, if I didn't get the recommendations from Travis at Every Battery in Balcatta in Western Australia, I wouldn't have known where to start. I did go to a competitor of theirs some weeks earlier, and they did tell me they were going to call me back with some suggestions, and that never happened. So there's something to be said or going into the store and speaking to someone who knows what it is that they're talking about. And I'll show you the details of that store in just a moment. So here's the final setup. You can see my battery, my battery monitor is installed there as well. Now, at the moment, it's just hanging in space, but the cord, I should have actually opened this up to show you how I installed that one. There's really nothing fancy to that at all. You just take it off, put on the new one. Oh, the one thing to be careful of is that because the shims over here, you can see how thick that shim is. When it comes time to put the new battery terminals on, you have to get quite a large screwdriver, stick it into the jaws of the clamp and open it up. It needs to be opened up further than it was with the original battery terminals to allow it to go over the shim. And then you close it by getting a pair of pliers or multi-grips, grabbing the front of that battery terminal and just gently squeezing it back together before you refit. There's a nifty little clamp that is used as part of the original installation, that as you tighten that clamp up, it closes the jaws of the clamp. So it's a lovely setup. You can just see a piece of that clamp on the edge. Where am I here? Yeah, you can see it. Just here underneath the negative connection to my battery monitor, there's a little clamp that fits over the end of this battery clamp. And once you get that started and start screwing this fella down, it actually tightens its grip on the battery terminal. So you get for certain a really good connection. And make sure everything is tight, that there is no movement at all. You can grab this, move it around, grab this, move it around. You don't want any swing on that terminal. Same there, and especially again on the positive side. So here is where I got the battery. Now I understand that this video can be seen all around the world. As far as I know, this is a battery that's available in many parts of the world. It's available, I know, all around Australia. Elsewhere, I don't know. So that's, as I say, it may be, this information here in front of you may be helpful for you to find an alternative. You can see the model number there, so you can get the dimensions and see if you can find an alternative. Remember the terminal configuration. You have to have the red, as they term it, on the right, the positive on the right, even though when we turn the battery around, it'll look to us as if it's on the left. But the standard terminology is there. Now, the other thing to notice is the capacity of the battery up here, 38 amp hours. It's exactly the same as the battery that came out of the Atto3 originally. So where's the big deal? Well, it does have, yes, admittedly, more cranking amps, but it's the fact that it's a deep cycle battery. This can have more energy drawn from the battery before the volts will start to deplete. Is that the right terminology? The volts start to reduce, perhaps, as the energy stored within is depleted. The volts will remain higher. So for what we need in the Atto3, which is a simple job, we need to start the computer and we need to be able to throw the contactors. That's not a huge draw. It's not like you've got a starter motor cranking a diesel engine around and drawing 400 amps to do it. We have a computer to kick off and some contactors to throw, which are relays essentially. So why on earth we originally had as a design component in our car something that is for cranking an engine is pointless. We really need something that is more likely that it can provide storage over a long period of time, so that even if we have left things on, like accessories in the car, lights on in the car, we haven't charged it in a while, we haven't trickle charged it in a while, whatever, that we still have storage or capacity available to us to do a few basic jobs. just on the south side of the river of Perth. Very convenient to get to. You just got to drive off the highway and come in behind the shopping centre at Belmont. I would ask for Travis only because he's the man that did the job. After that, I'm hoping he gets a few calls because, as I said, this has been an ongoing problem for the BYD Atto3. And I'd like to have all of you who are watching this now think that there's a way out by getting a battery that should be giving you much better performance, a longer life and a greater peace of mind. And I'll say thank you again. This is Sly from EV Talk.